who are not able to join this will go on YouTube channel of ours and can watch it. So good evening, everybody. Good to have you all. I have with me Dr. Kamna Chibber, who is in fact trying to talk to us in today's specific topic, which is staying strong in crisis, role of teachers, which is all of us who are part of this conversation. A very brief introduction of Miss Kamna Chibber, clinical psychologist and head mental health, Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at Fortis Healthcare. With that as an introduction, I would request Kamna ji to take it over, and let's have a very healthy conversation. After her deliberation, we'll take up your question as many as we can. Welcome once again, and good to have you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yadav, for such a warm introduction. And I think it's very important that we first and foremost, of course, acknowledge all the efforts we're all putting in here to try and take care of everyone's mental health. I believe that IPN is doing such a wonderful initiative here, taking charge of such an important topic currently, which is so extremely relevant in every individual's life. I think it's very critical that we each move towards looking at mental health and well-being of every individual. And of course, today we're here to talk about, how do you stay strong in the midst of a crisis? What is it that we as educators, as teachers, do to ensure that we're being able to support people around us, students around us, our peers around us, the other teachers around us, to try and ensure that we are being able to cultivate the right kind of climate and approach, have the right kind of collective coming together of people to be able to come through this pandemic. And I think the first thing that we all need to understand and acknowledge is that, yes, there is a crisis. We are going through a stressor. And this stressor, the term stressor in itself may seem very minimalistic right now, but I think it's very important to understand that if every one of us currently is experiencing certain difficult emotions, that is bound to happen. In life, as you go through difficult circumstances, whatever those circumstances may be, there is bound to be a lot of pressure which gets created. It leads to a lot of thinking. It can lead to a lot of different emotional experiences. And we have to understand that that experience of stress is going to be natural. We don't need to run away or start thinking that there is something very drastically wrong with me. A lot of times what happens is that when people are feeling anxiety, when people are feeling that there are a lot of thoughts running in their mind, or their moods are getting affected, they're feeling low, sometimes they're irritable, sometimes they feel very restless, we start trying to label those emotions. And not just as emotional states. We start thinking that there may be something which is very much wrong with me. Maybe I'm developing some sort of an illness. Maybe this is something which is very big. And I think that's the one thing we need to try and step away from, which is going to be very critical in these times currently. Because we need to, once again, and I'm trying to reinforce this a lot because I do believe that it's important for us to understand that these emotional experiences that we are going through are somewhere our normal, natural responses to the difficulties we are facing in the current times. These are absolutely unprecedented times. Nothing could have prepared us for this. Nothing could have come into our lives which could have made us understand that for almost 14 months now, we would be sitting inside our houses, trying to run life the way we had been running it from outside our homes. Nothing could have prepared us for the fact that all of you, teachers, educators, people who were going to schools, who were standing there physically in the classrooms, teaching children, giving them all those quintessential skills which are required for leading their lives, would have to go through a massive transition, adapting to the changed environment, having to take on these kind of technological new ways of creating learning opportunities for students. Nothing could have prepared us for all of this, and yet we each have done that. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we need to hold on to when we're trying to move through this crisis, which is to remember that when we first got hit by the pandemic, despite all the challenges and difficulties, we did find a way forward. We were able to mobilize ourselves. We were able to mobilize our resources. We found the strength within us. We found the resources within us and around us to be able to figure out what could be the best way to adapt to that situation. The second wave has certainly made it far more challenging. It's stressing us. It's stretching us beyond limits because it's no longer just about providing education, it's also about managing our lives. It's also become about hearing and listening to a lot of stories and narratives about loss, about grief, about difficulties of getting medications, of finding beds. There is a lot which is going on around us. And as teachers, individuals who are regularly interacting with young people who would be coming up with their own emotional experiences and distresses, who would be questioning you or sharing with you their own understandings of what's happening, or they may be wondering about what is going on, how is this all going to change. I think it becomes very difficult sometimes to keep on taking that on. But yet, as educators, our role is not just to be those people who need to provide just learning opportunities for students. I think that role has become diversified during this time, where teachers have had to become role models, where you have to start imbibing the approach that you want to make sure your students are able to inculcate as well. Which means if you want them to be able to stay calm, to stay relaxed, which means if you want them to start taking on more ownership and responsibility, you're having to demonstrate it from your virtual places to ensure that children are being able to take that on as well. Teachers are having to come into roles of mentoring. It's about making sure that we're being able to share a lot of live examples from our own lives, from the lives of others around us, to make sure that children are also able to gather that kind of courage and take away learnings from them, maintain their positivity, their optimism, their hopefulness. And what that also is doing is it's encouraging students to also share their experiences. And as they come and share their narratives and stories with you, that's what gives you a lot of positivity as well as educators. That's what also creates hopefulness within you, because you start seeing that silver lining and you start seeing the positive side of things as well, even when a lot of negative stories are coming our way through the day, through the week, through the month. I think what's also needed is right now to become that support system. If you can be that person who can just reach out to a few students or a few colleagues for that matter, especially when they're going through these difficult times, it's not just about being physically present next to someone, something that we are probably very used to. If someone has a problem, we land up at their house, we land up, in their room, we try and talk to them and we try and be there physically. That has always been our traditional approach. But that has to change today. We have to start coming up with ways in which we can keep staying connected to people and become those support systems, because that's what will also create the right support system for you, because you too require that strength to be able to continue doing the critical work that you're doing during this period of time, as you're trying to balance all the different responsibilities, the different roles, the different crises which are coming your way. You're not being able to step away from your primary role as the educator, even though there may be a lot going on within your home space. And yet you need to keep on being that support system to ensure that you also have your own support system in place. I think teachers have to now take on that role of the counselor to make sure that they are being able to provide much needed support and guidance to a lot of young people, to each other as well. Because that one line, that one statement that you can share with someone else in their moment of difficulty can make a huge impact and an immense difference in their lives. And these are things that we hear from a lot of the young people that we talk to as well, where they share what a difference the teacher who is talking to them has made in their lives when they have shared certain experiences with them, or when they have taken that moment to acknowledge that someone is struggling, or to have a discussion within the classroom. And having those conversations within the classroom also allows you to be able to experience that emotional release, and also be able to take back something which a young child can give you, because children have their own way of looking at things. They're extremely resilient a lot of the times, and they can come up with these most unique understandings which all of us as adults may miss. And sometimes there can be so many learnings in those moments which can change things for us. I think right now the moment is here where we each needs to rise up and support each other. How do you ensure that you're being taken care of? How do you take care of your mental health and well-being? How do you ensure that there is hope in the midst of this crisis, and how do you stay strong? I think be there for the people that you love, your friends, your family members, your colleagues. Send a text, just send an emoticon if you don't have the time to text, because you are trying to do 100 different things. Learn to speak up, unmute yourself, share your experience. If you are going through a challenging time, if you are experiencing some difficulty, you must share. That is how you create the right network of people around you to ensure that you're being able to take care of your own self and your own well-being as well. Because currently there is so much stress that every individual is experiencing. A lot of times people are not able to intuitively understand that you may be struggling with something that your friend may have been able to do previously during a regular time when there wasn't as much going on in their life. So don't hesitate. Take that active effort to reach out, share what is it that is troubling you, ask people for the support that you need. That is something which is very, very important. I think what is also very important is that if you need help with certain things within your house, if you need help with certain things within your school's roles, because there is immense responsibility which is coming at you, and there are numerous tasks that you need to do. I think this is the time that we need to keep talking about that. And I know we hesitate a lot of times. We do too. In our own professional spaces, we would also be hesitant to say that I may be struggling to, fulfill a certain role or responsibility because I've got this particular situation here. But at the same time, what we are seeing right now, at least, is that when people are talking about what's going on with them, others are willing to step in. But that stepping in can only happen if you will choose to share. If you will not choose to say something about it, no one can help you work through things. No one can help you also manage your thought processes. When we're in the midst of a crisis, we can easily get stuck with certain thoughts which are running in our own mind, and they start running in loops, and you can't take a different perspective. And what's most helpful is to be able to talk to someone else. Sometimes even just listening to your own thoughts can help you start shifting your vantage point. What you may not see in a given moment, maybe someone else can point out to you. Whether it's your family member who's there in your home, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, it's important to be able to tell them that this particular thought or this particular experience is troubling me. Maybe they will be able to help you shift that perspective. And I think it's very important to start finding ways to take care of yourself. Self-care becomes a term which, a lot of people end up mocking as well. But I think there is no better time than right now to engage and indulge in whatever small measures you can, to in activities, in things which bring you certain peace, certain relaxation. It could be something as simple as 5 minutes for a cup of tea. It could be something as simple as just playing your favorite music, at night for those 5 minutes while you're probably in the bathroom having your last shower of the day. You can even do that. And that could be the most relaxing moment for your day, because those are the small things which will bring that smile to your face, which probably just happened right now when you were thinking about this. Because we need those moments. If we don't have any good moment during the course of the day, and all that is happening to us is information after information coming at us constantly, but it's like a constant barrage of negativity which is being showered at us, we will all feel like we are collapsing, and we will actually start collapsing. So we also need to start becoming prudent about the information we're consuming. Where are you taking this information from? Is the source a credible source? Are you taking information which you're not being able to process? Stop that. Is it becoming too overwhelming for you? Step away. It's okay for you to say or no and say that, what, I can't deal with this anymore, I need to switch off. Get off the social media platforms, get off the news channels, get off any platform where there is so much information coming at you which is making you feel that, I just can't cope right now. And it is okay for you to make that choice. I think that's something which is very important you need to remember. It's okay for you to make a choice to try and prioritize yourself, especially because if what I am telling you is to be there for others, I need to ensure that you are okay to be there for others. If you are not fine, you will not be able to form that support system. You will not be able to keep doing that amazing job that you've all been doing for more than a year now, continuously, day in and day out, for the young minds whose lives you're shaping, who you're influencing every day, for the members of your household who you're taking care of every day. It's very, very important that you engage in self-care. I think what's most important, and this is probably the final thing that I'm going to say right now, is that we need to come together as a collective, as a community which is willing to support each other. There is nothing which is going to be far more important than that currently. And I think that's something that we each needs to reinforce, not just in our own minds, but also with all the people that you know who you work with, who they're in your homes, all those young people who you talk to, remind them that we each needs to stand up for the other person. We have to be there to make sure that we are able to work through this pandemic and come out on the other side with greater connect, with greater empathy, with greater ability to be able to be there for each other, even when in the future we may have difficulties coming our way. That's how you ensure that you maintain hopefulness. That's how you ensure that you're able to work through crisis. You share the positivities, you take care of yourself, you take care of the others around you. That's something which is very important.
Okay, well said, Dr. Kamna Chibber. I will obviously open this up for question and answer. However, I completely resonate with what's said. At least one thing which I will like to outline for all of you is something called self-care. At least from last, which is 1 year, uh, obviously post the pandemic, one thing which I personally had to take care of was my own health. I was very extensively used to travel, and maybe it was taking a toll on me in a very big way. And I was not taking care of it, by the way. And actually, pandemic gave me a chance to reassess, reboot, and possibly recharge myself in a way, right? So that's very well said. I think self-care is something which people miss out, and especially teachers miss out. They have to multitask. They have to do household stuff as well, and then they are wearing so much multiple hats. I would say they are a mother to someone, then they're a wife to someone, and not to say there are not gentlemen for that matter, but gentlemen are also performing similar role. They are father to some, or a young daughter, or a son, and then they're an employee for that matter, and host of other jobs for that matter. But having said this, good context. Now let's have questions, which is, as I said, majority of the time we wanted to devote for you all. If you have any question which is at your level, we begin with Bharti. Bharti, your question, you'll have to unmute yourself and ask. Please keep your questions as focused as possible so that we get to cover more
Hello,
questions.
I'm Bharti from Karnataka.
Yeah, Bharti. Where in Karnataka?
Yeah.
Karnataka is very big.
Hassan.
Hassan. Okay.
Recently, my uncle met an accident. He lost his 2 legs. Now he is not able to walk. Unfortunately, he get positive. If I want to be inside, I'm getting the call from my aunt and I'm speaking to her. So whenever I think, only negativity coming to my mind. If I want to go outside and stand, if I think like that, opposite to my house, I have a hospital. Every day, 3 to 4 members, they are dying from COVID. So in this condition, how to think positive?
I think that's a very valuable question. In fact, there are so many people around us currently who are struggling, and it can be very hard in some of these circumstances to make sure that you are able to be there for people. And especially in such a circumstance, the way you described, Bharti, thank you so much for sharing this experience with us as well. I think there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. First, of course, right now, even though you may feel the urge, the necessity, the drive to be there physically with this gentleman, I would still urge you that we all also need to be very socially responsible. Right now, it's very critical that none of us make choices which could further create more or further contribute to the problem of the pandemic that we're already in. And it's very important. And I really appreciate the choice you're making, even though it's a difficult one emotionally as well and psychologically as well for you, to not take that step of going to a hospital or physically being present in that situation and taking all the precautions and safety measures. But I also feel that we are in a time where, we have immense access to people, and we can certainly use the social aspect of social media to stay connected to people around us. And I think this is the time where we absolutely must utilize that. it's very crucial that we do not try and turn towards physically being present towards people, but make sure we are emotionally and mentally there for them by connecting to them virtually. It's not just about your uncle who's in the hospital. It will also be about the remaining family members who would be struggling to cope with the entire trauma of him having gone through this accident, of them not being able to necessarily be there with him in the way that they would like to. And I think this would be a very critical time to probably also keep reaching out to them, expressing to them your availability, your support, encouraging them to share with you as and when they can their own experiences. Being able to even take on the emotional toll of what's going on is something which could be very helpful in this time. And I think I would encourage you to do that. And yes, negative thoughts can plague you, but at this point in time, what you also need to focus on is the fact that this gentleman is still there. And this gentleman is recovering, and he would be putting in all efforts to be able to ensure that he is recovering very well from this entire situation that he has been exposed to. And that's what you also need to focus on, that he's recovering, he's going to be out soon. And yes, we need to help him adapt and figure out the best way that he can lead a full productive life. And your positivity and your optimism and being able to see this is going to enable him to be able to do that. And that's how you keep maintaining your positive outlook, which is by remembering that your job is also to ensure that he does so. So for him, you put your thoughts on the side and you keep on focusing on what is good in this situation, the fact that he is recovering, and you maintain your positivity and optimism through that.
From the 4 days, I am not able to sleep, ma'am, because of this.
So I think it is very natural to understand that somewhere your sleep would be affected, somewhere your thinking would be affected, your productivity would get affected because you are attached to an individual. And that is a normal experience of coping with the situation. I think what you should be doing is you should keep on talking about your emotional experiences with your friends and your family members. That would help you gain a perspective, and it will help you get the right support system, so that even when you are struggling with certain thoughts, you will be able to ensure that you are being able to work through that. And if you feel that your sleep disturbance is continuing, you can certainly talk to experts as well. At the same time, I would suggest that at night you should try and wind down the day by taking care of, getting off certain social media, making sure that you are not overexposing yourself to information. Try certain things which are relaxing for you, maybe play a lot of music, maybe read, so that the thought process stops and you're able to focus on getting some good sleep. Perhaps even get some exercise into the day so that there is adequate amount of physical lethargy which comes in, and you're able to ensure that you're able to sleep better.
Jasmeet ji.
Thank you, sir. Good evening and Jai Hind, everybody. Gaurav, sir, I'm from Varanasi, Sunbeam Varuna.
Okay.
And my Jai Hind, sir. My question is the similar situation what Bharti ma'am shared with one of my teacher. She has lost her both the parents within 3 days, and she is all alone now. Parents of her class, students, she is class 1 class teacher, and parents are calling, we are calling, only phone is the medium to contact with her. We can't go to her. Condition is worst in the city. So what to do with that girl? She is not able to cope up from this situation. She has lost 4-5 more members of her family in this pandemic, and the worst condition of her now. And we want to help, but I don't know how to help her. So please guide me how to help her in this situation.
I think it's important to understand that loss, coping with loss, the grieving process, mourning process takes time. It's only been a few days, 3 days, like you said, within which she's lost her parents. And prior to that, she's probably lost other family members as well. And this is going to take its own time. It's not something that you come to term with within the next few days itself. It's going to be a long process. And what's going to be very important, if there are things that you do want to do for the lady you're referring to, I think 2 or 3 things. One, it's not just about connecting now. It's not just about sending those messages and calls now. It's about continuity of that availability of support. So it's going to be very critical that you all try to make an effort to make yourselves available emotionally and psychologically to her over the longitudinal period of time, because right now it's more a situation where there will be a shock reaction. It will take her time to process it, and it's only after a few days, when the reality starts settling in, that a lot of emotional experiences would start getting heightened, and that's when you need a lot more support as well. So I think that's something which is very important. I think the second aspect is taking on a lot of workload if possible in this situation. And I don't mean just workload which relates to the school. Of course, I'm sure the school would do everything possible. The administrators, management would, everyone would try to step in for that. But even for tasks which may be happening at home, it would be a good idea to keep checking whether if there are certain things which can be managed by all of you from the outside. So things like, organizing food, there are certain formalities which may need to be done, certain paperwork, things which can be done online, which could add extra stress and pressure. I think that's something which could be very helpful. If this person has children in the home, those children are struggling to understand what's going on. She may not be able to make herself emotionally available, but if you are connected to those children, it could be very good to maybe have short conversations with them, help them also process things, even if it's happening over video. I think if broadly these 3-4 things you can take care of, that would really be helpful to this individual. But most importantly, maintain the continuity of connectedness. That's something which is very important. So keep reaching out in whichever way you can, and encourage others to do so as well. That would be the best thing possible right now.
I think well said, Ms. Kamna. Anjali Singh.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm Anjali Singh from Lucknow, and I'm working in Army School as a school counselor. So, ma'am, actually, it's more like we often, as a mental health worker, we often tend to focus on, and we often suggest people that self-care is that utmost responsibility towards yourself. However, it's like individual only tend to come to just when they find themselves in struggling with 4 to 5 problem. That time also we suggest them that taking care of yourself and mental health is important. But my question is that how we can motivate them that self care is not an option for them. It's a responsibility towards oneself, as a first responsibility towards yourself and for your mental health. How can we generate this mindset among individuals?
Um, that's something which is very, very valid. I agree that a lot of times people feel hesitant in making that choice of taking care of themselves because they equate it with being either selfish, or a lot of times they feel that, how can I put aside these 10 responsibilities that I have and instead indulge myself in some sort of a relaxation or an activity for myself. That motivation or that drive often goes away, especially if you don't have the right, system around you, or the right support around you within your home, especially where people are not being able to step in and take on roles. And I think in these situations, the best we can do, at least, is to be able to help this person understand, and you contextualize it for them, that if they need to continue to be caregivers, caring for the self cannot be neglected at all. If they want to be effective in the roles that they're performing, and their aim is to ensure that their productivity is not getting impacted. And by productivity, I don't mean just work. By productivity, I also mean the roles that they're taking care of at home. They have to ensure that they are in a good mental space, that they're being able to perform those roles. I think it also helps to utilize a lot of examples to point out to them, where is it that because they are not being able to take care of their own health and well-being, there is a slipping which is happening in how they're being able to respond to situation. So for instance, they would be seeing certain shifts in their own moods. They may be reacting a little more harshly to situations, or they may be struggling to, point out ways in which people can take care of their roles within their own home. There would be various small things which you can utilize to highlight to them why is it that self-care is required in these particular moments, especially right now during the pandemic when the stress is so much. We cannot ignore that. So you have to keep reinforcing it. And again, it's going to be repeatedly reminding them, helping them integrate that into their internal settings, so to say. which is what is going to help make that shift, because it's not something that comes to them naturally. So you have to keep reinforcing it again and again, and those constant reminders would certainly help ensure that this individual is able to shift and motivate themselves to to ensure taking care of themselves.
Arvanji.
Yeah, good evening, Gaurav. First of all, I must give my gratitude to IPN for taking sincere care of teaching fraternity. Thank you so very much, and thank you so very much, Kamna ji. Your words are very valuable. I just wanted to share one serious problem that teaching fraternity is facing these days because of this another wave of pandemic. Schools are closed, teachers are sitting at home, and there is a negativity. What they are facing is on their financial crisis because of fee structure issues. Teachers are not getting sufficient salaries, and they are in kind of financial panic. What will happen next? Though, as far as it is as a principal of the school, I'm not forcing my teachers to come to school regularly. Only 4, 5 teachers, 6 teachers are coming, and just to take care of responsibility. Even I'm requesting them, do come, move from your home and do stop straight inside the school premises. Take ample of lukewarm water during school stay, and whenever you get back to your home, just take a shower with the warm water, and then take steam for your good health. But still, I am just finding this problem, that how can I make them pacify on this financial crisis issues, because they are facing a serious problem in this concern. And I'm emotionally very much disturbed on this, because they are my wings through whom I can fly, and I don't want them to get suffer. Kindly please help me in this regard.
That's a difficult one, only because I think we all know, we all understand that life is not led without having the right financial resources, and people's homes are run through the financial resources that they have access to. I think a lot of times it's about how we are communicating and what we are communicating that can help ease the anxiousness that is kind of settling into people's minds. And what would be very helpful is for the teachers to be able to have a clarity on what are they looking at in terms of the long run. It's the indefiniteness or the lack of a complete understanding of what does this mean for them in the long term. How are things going to shape up? Is this going to be something which would change? Is there going to be a time when there is going to be a reversal of the policy? Is there going to be a time when there may be a compensation for the monies that have been lost? All of those questions, if they are adequately answered and people have clarity on what they're looking at, they can take care of their anxieties. It's the unknown that creates a lot of anxiousness, worry, concern, and apprehension, and that affects your own moods, and it takes away from your motivation and your drive to do things. You communicate with transparency, with openness, and you share what the plan is. And whether it's you as the principal, whether it's the management or the administration which needs to step in to some of these situations, that choice has to be made, so that all the people who are working within the system can have a clarity on what's going on and what they can expect, and that will help them also manage their own ways of responding in the future. So if they need to take care of finances in a certain way for the next 10 months, if they don't know it's for the next 10 months, they also cannot plan. And I know there are certain questions which even you may not have answers to, but giving them a broad framework would certainly be helpful, even though specifics may not be possible here. Repeatedly having conversations, taking out the time to have small group discussions where you're addressing concerns, where you're understanding from them where there are certain concerns coming in, will be helpful. Perhaps having one-on-ones with specific individuals who may be having greater struggles would be also very beneficial in this situation, because there could be other factors besides the finances which may be contributing to greater stress in that moment. So it could be that, at a particular time there is an illness happening, or there is some particular financial requirement that they have which is not getting fulfilled, and that may be playing a larger role. So it may not be a very generalized concern, it could be very specific, which you could probably understand from them and also help them take care of. So those could be some of the ways that you could try and address these things.
Okay. Deepika?
Am I audible, sir?
Okay.
Yeah, very good, sir. And Kamna, thank you so much for the lecture session. Actually, I was very much in need of that session because one of my she was asking me that, ma'am, actually the third wave is more dangerous for kids. So they are so much into information, and they are more exposed to the information. So how can you just counsel them or pacify them in this situation? And they are talking about the third wave. They are actually in the second wave, and they are talking about the third wave. And they are very much informed about that kids can be affected by the third wave. So how can we set down those anxieties?
I think I would first like to take this opportunity to congratulate you that the students are coming up to you and talking about this, because that means that you are creating the right kind of environment within your classrooms for the students to feel comfortable enough that they can share these concerns that they have in their mind. So I think that's
Thank you,
big thank you to you that you are doing this for these young people. That's something which is very critical. I think the fact that they're coming to you and talking about this in any case is going to help them diffuse that anxiety that they're developing about what's going to happen. And I think the biggest role that we can currently play in some of these situations is two things. I would say one, we need to take a very proactive approach in promoting media literacy here. And this is something that, we at Fortis keep on advocating for a lot. I know Mr. Yadav is also very much aware of this particular initiative that we keep on pushing forward in a lot of schools, which is to say that, we need to start helping students understand how media messages get created, how certain media keeps on getting propagated. They need to learn to question, where is this message coming from? Why is it coming to me? What made this person produce this particular message? Is this information coming from a credible source or not? So your primary role right now is to push them to only look at credible sources of information. That, I think, is the most important thing currently, because a lot of misinformation and fake news exists around us, and it's very hard to figure out that, okay, is this okay or is this not? So I think that's the first thing that you should encourage your students to do. I think the second aspect is to keep on helping them understand that second wave or third wave, what the future holds for us, none of us can predict that. But what we can do is we can focus on what is there in front of us today. We can focus on what is it that we can do to take control of things today. And so each and every one of us needs to ensure that we are doing that. We need to be socially responsible. We need to take active measures to ensure we're following all safety protocols. We wear our masks. We don't step out. Even if there are people who are telling us, let's just meet for half an hour. Let's just meet for 15 minutes. No, everything will be okay. I'm vaccinated. You are also vaccinated. Let's step outside. No, you don't do that. You stick to ensuring that you are following all measures, and you keep reinforcing that to children as well. That's something which is very, very critical. And you keep telling them that right now what you can do is provide support to each other, be a good friend, be there for that friend who may be struggling. We will all be able to come through this pandemic if we make sure that we are socially responsible and we take the right kind of steps and measures to take care of our well-being. And I think these two things, if you focus on, children will be able to deal with that anxiety, because they start feeling that, okay, fine, we are at least doing everything in the right way. And if something does happen later on, we will look at it at that time. Because no one can predict the future. No one can also influence or shape the future right now. We need to look at what is there in front of us and take charge of that. That's how you speak to them. And I'm sure they will be able to really appreciate that approach as well from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering this question, ma'am. Thank you.
Galaxy J7 Max.
Okay, good evening, sir. and good evening, Dr. Kamna ma'am. I'm from Maharashtra, Nagpur. My name is Kavita Ganthale, sir. My question was also before the same question was that, this third wave we are hearing, and it is most effect create effect for the especially for kids as we are hearing. So already from 14 years, 14 months, students or all the children's kids, they are at home. They are using mobiles, they are doing studies, we are not sending out. So they are more frustrated. And as a teacher, I'm hearing parents are telling, "Ma'am, बच्चे बहुत चिड़चिड़े हो गए हैं, वो बात नहीं सुनना चाहते हैं." So in this situation, any special trick, ma'am, for the kids? For the kids especially, means how we will control at home, because it is a long time.
So I think one, you need to ask your own self first, and this is what I encourage parents to do also, is that are you not feeling irritable that you've been inside your house for the last 14 months and you're not leading your regular life? We're all feeling that irritability.
Yeah.
We're all snapping. We're all sometimes feeling low. And that is normal emotional reaction to the situation we are in. And I think we need to understand that children are also going to do the same thing.
Yeah, ma'am. So I need a
More
little
important
support of
is
your first, for the kids, means how we will control little different way
so
at
please,
home, because it was a long time, ma'am.
No, so let me answer and complete the answer. Then you can ask me further questions.
Okay.
So like I was saying, that if they are being a little irritable, what your job is to try and understand from them in that moment, what is it that is making them irritable? Instead of you being reactive as a parent, it is far more critical to try and understand from them what do they feel is making them feel more upset and out of control in this situation. Once you have a good understanding of what is it that is creating that irritability, and it may not be our understanding of it, we are likely to think it's because they're sitting indoors. It may well be that they have had an argument with a friend which they did not appreciate, and they may be worried about that, and that is making them more irritable at home with the parents as well, and they're being snappy. Or it could be that, parent is being very insistent on a particular chore which they don't want to do, and they feel that they are not being heard in that situation, and so they start being very reactive. So it's very important to open that communication, to open a dialogue with your child, the adolescent or that you're talking about, and try and make sure that this child is being able to share with you what is going on with them. That will be very helpful in that situation. And secondly, I do feel that it's important to give them that space to be able to, if say for instance it's coming on account of chores, it's coming on account of certain duties that they've been given within the home, give them the option to make a choice. That would also help them feel a little more in control of the situations. And at the same time, it's important to remind them that we are all going through this entire situation together. None of us are happy in this state. And yes, as we've probably not given them the right environment, the best environment, and as adults, probably we all need to take responsibility for the situations we are currently in. But at the same time, we are all making all efforts possible to try and ensure we come through this. And you keep reinforcing these three aspects, that will certainly help this individual to be able to cope better with the situation and manage their moods somewhat better.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your suggestion. I will try. And I will try to my students also that they will become happy at home. And thank you for organizing such a nice webinar for us. Thank you, ma'am.
Khushbu Singh, your question.
Okay. The same question I also want to ask. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. I'm from Mount Litra Z School, Rudrapur, Uttarakhand. The same questions the parents are asking to me, they are just messaging me like their child is becoming stubborn. They don't want to do their work. They are not listening to them. Parents are asking to me to counsel them, to ask them, to convince their children to do their work and children are not ready to leave the mobile also. They are not at all listening to the parents. So how we can convince the children, how we can talk to them about this?
Right now, certainly screen time has gone up. And something which I or a lot of mental health experts currently are also saying is that we cannot keep focusing on that aspect, because that particular solution that they have found is allowing them to stay connected to the outside world, something which is completely missing otherwise. We also want them to have social contact, something which they would have when they would be going to school. When they would be in school for the 8 hours or 10 hours that they were spending time, that they were constantly in the midst of thousands of children. So while they were studying, they were also being able to talk to the next person who's sitting on the bench, either in front of them, behind them, or on their side. There would be a lot of joking around which would happen, a lot of light moments which would happen, which has gone completely amiss right now when the online classes happen. And children a lot of times are missing that experience, which is making them feel even more tempted to be on these online platforms, to be able to have access to those people, those kind of conversations and interactions which they have gotten used to over so many years. I think what is very important right now is that we need to try and speak to young children who are going through this transitory phase, to one, remind them that this is a transitory phase. Right now, we may be feeling that we're completely stuck. And yes, it may seem that, this is becoming an endless cycle. Yet we need to understand that this will end. It had ended a couple of months ago when everything started opening up. It will happen again. It's a cycle. It has to change. It will change. When it does, we will be able to normalize things. I think the second aspect is that you need to help a child figure out what is the priority. A lot of times what happens in households is we make everything into a priority. You have to eat, you have to sleep on time, you need to wake up on time, you need to make sure you're doing all your homework, you need to be there at, when we are all sitting to watch TV. Everything becomes a have to. So what happens is that the child gets irritated, that why is everything a have to and why can't I make choices? So I think it becomes very important to say that, what, we are going to move away from making everything into a have to, but what we request you or want you to do is ensure that you do your work. Around that, we will not say anything. So if there are 10 tasks which are given to you from school, and out of those 10 tasks, your teacher has told you at least 2 are essential tasks which you have to complete, to make sure those 2 are done. That is the approach that we need to start taking, because we need to create that flexibility in our own minds so that our children don't feel very pressured and they don't start feeling disconnected. That is what is happening right now, because they feel they're not being understood, and it's leading to a lot of negativity in their own minds. If we start taking this approach, I'm certain a lot of children will start coming back into doing the things that they need to do, because at the end of the day, my belief is every individual is wired for success. Every individual wants to be productive, wants to ensure that they're doing well in life, and that includes children as well. None of them want to fail, none of them like to fail, none of them want to be in a situation where they can't procure an admission into a college. So they also understand the relevance, and we need to have that at the back of our mind and approach conversations with that in our mind.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gaurav and Kamni ma'am, for organizing such a wonderful session for all of us. I am myself feeling inspired. This is Jarnail Singh from Mount Litera Z School, Rudapur, the relationship manager over here. Although you have already cleared a few of the measures which teachers should take care of themselves, as Kamni ma'am has already mentioned, and you have also mentioned regarding the self-care. And yes, the major question that regarding the salary should be clear to each and all the staff member. The clarity should be there. I want to ask just few measures as an administration, being a part into the administration of the school, what general measures should be taken care to motivate and inspire our teachers, and also some general instructions for the parents during this pandemic and online teaching?
That's a very, very broad question. I wish I'm able to do justice to the question, because it I think encompasses everything possible right now. I think what you can do, especially for teachers right now, is also to offer them the space to be able to come and share experiences. I think a lot of teachers, like a lot of people who work in organizations, tend to be very hesitant because they feel that they will either get judged or sometimes even that they may get penalized for that. And I think that it's very important to create an environment, a culture where conversations are encouraged, where transparency is encouraged, and that has to be a top-down approach where, as administrators, management, principals, we start sharing experiences right from the top, which would encourage others to also come up and share what's going on with them. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do. I think the second aspect is to bring about a sensitivity in how conversations around the challenges that teachers are speaking about are taken care of. A lot of times what happens is, because the challenges tend to be common, we become desensitized to it, not because we don't understand what's happening, but because you're listening to the same thing so many times, you can end up responding to it not in the best way. And we need to be very aware of that every individual's concern, even though it may be the same as the next person or similar to the next person's, is still their concern, and that needs to be valued. I think even if you can take these two broad things in mind, besides of course maintaining transparency in whatever are the processes that are being envisioned for the school system in the future, if you can do all of these two things, I think that would be absolutely wonderful. Teachers would really appreciate that. I think when you're talking about parents, I think what needs to be reinforced to parents is that one, that the schools and the parents are aligned towards the same end. I think that's something which needs to be constantly communicated to them. A lot of times parents feel as though, you're working on two different tangents, and that's not the case. I think that's something which needs to be reinforced here. The other thing which parents need to be probably told is that, what, right now, even if academic skill development is perhaps not happening in the best way or in the ideal way, we need to become okay with that, and we need to start understanding that we may need to focus on other areas of skill development. So you need to, as parents, provide more opportunities for your child to, say for instance, focus on communication. Say for instance, look at being more empathetic and sensitive to people around you. Say for instance, be more creative, start being more supportive at home, engage more in the chores at home. Those aspects also are very critical in terms of life skills. And I think that's something that if schools are also communicating to the parents and encouraging them and giving them the assurance that once we are able to come back to schools, we will take care of the academics as well. Don't worry, it's not going to be such a big setback. We're all going to be in this together. We give them that support, that motivation, that understanding. They would certainly feel very reassured, a lot more relaxed. And I'm sure you'll be able to take care of a lot of their concerns.
Great. Wonderful, man. Thank you so much. My aspects are already clear. Thank you so much for inspiring each and every one of us. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Gurpreet Kaur from Rajpura, Punjab. Being a teacher, it is very big challenge for us that students are not attentive regarding their classes, online classes, as they do not attend on the regular basis. We have talked with their parents and students also, but still there is no response from them. Kindly help us to suggest with this issue.
Ma'am, I completely understand that concern. I think there are 2-3 aspects over here why I feel students a lot of times are not as engaged. One, like I was previously also sharing, that the school environment was a very vibrant environment. And that is something that we're not able to replicate in our online classes. And I think somewhere that takes away, unfortunately, from how students become engaged to what is going on in the online classes. A lot of times, I think students also end up not necessarily feeling that kind of stimulation because there may be just a unidirectional flow of information. The exchanges which could happen within a classroom where a student could just raise their hands often don't happen as frequently, possibly. A lot of children do talk about this within the classes. So that element, again, being slightly on the lower side, again affects the ways in which they are approaching the classes. And I think thirdly, because they are able to maybe not participate and they are still being able to keep on doing what they need to, they're taking that opportunity right now also. I'm not going to deny that either. I think what we can do as educators is we need to probably, besides looking at the academic curriculum within the class, and I know there is immense pressure and I may get a lot of negative comments from a lot of the teachers as soon as I say this, but if we can start supplementing the academic curriculum content along with maybe a small conversation on what is happening around us, it may be more engaging for a lot of the students. And I know it may take away 5 or 10 minutes from your classes, and that may mean that you may need to fit in your content in a more quick manner into the class. But I think somewhere that could be more encouraging for students to be attentive. I think the other aspect is that if we can try and modulate the way in which information is presented in the classes, feedback which we receive from a lot of students as well, where if there can be a lot more Q&A, if students can be asked to prepare some portions of the classes where they can have more of an interaction, if there can be quizzes, pop quizzes within within the online classes as well, those tend to become more engaging for students and they are far more helpful. This means we have to continue adapting, and which means that there is a lot more work coming your way. But if you could probably start with small shifts, I'm sure students would feel engaged. And the best people to ask what can you do is the students. It's a very good idea to actually ask them that what is it that you want we can do which could help you feel a lot more engaged. My suggestions are these, but I'm sure they will be able to give you 100 different solutions to the problem that you're seeing, and they may be the best people to ask about this as well.
Okay, sir. Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
My next sequence of questions in, and I will request you to ask your question while if you can come on video. Galaxy M40, Deepika Bhargava, Bhanveer Singh Hada, and Priya Sukhija. These will be the sequence. Yeah, Galaxy M40.
Okay. Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. I am a psychology teacher as well as the counselor in Ahmedabad. I'm from Ahmedabad. I just wanted to ask ma'am, ma'am, in Ahmedabad, Gujarat board has said that 10th and 12th board exam will not be there. The schedule is just postponed where the dates are not coming and students are not as motivated as before. So what we can do for those board students with this uncertainty, how we can do that they can keep going with the studies, and still there are some problems with their families as well. So just if you can share your knowledge with this perspective.
I think no one can go on moving forward without having a goalpost in front of them. It's very, very challenging to just keep working towards something without knowing when that something is going to come your way. It's like, you're waiting in anticipation, and that only keeps on increasing your anxiety. My suggestion to a lot of the young people actually in this period has been that till we don't have clarity, because we also know that you have prepared yourself well enough by now. Most kids have done 2 revisions, 3 revisions. They're very well versed with the subject matter. Overlearning doesn't help. And I think we as adults need to become comfortable with the idea that they might as well can take a break right now. And that would be okay. If they're not studying for the next 2 or 3 weeks till we get clarity about how systems are going to be, it's not going to lead to, an unlearning of sorts. That's never how it happens. And we need to become comfortable with the idea that as soon as information is available, children will be very motivated to ensure that they are going to be able to perform well, because they have been working so hard for more than a year now on these subjects and trying to ensure that they can take their next steps. They would ensure that they're able to prepare in the right way. I would suggest, in fact, having this kind of an open conversation, even with the parents, telling them, let your child relax, let them unwind, let them do the things that they want to, maybe allow them to even do certain other classes, other programs that they may be interested in. Someone may want to do something online, in a different space altogether, which may be linked to, say, a college course that they want to pursue. We'd rather have them do that and be mindfully engaged to that, instead of just trying to keep on re-revising content which they already feel they have done so many times. I would suggest that you should take that up.
We have given the 1 week break from tomorrow as well. We discussed with the management, and I as a counselor discussed with the management, and management has approved this idea, just as you said. But again, teachers are like same. They will lose the contact, and they will just like they will not read at all. They will not come back again. So what about some points for teachers?
We should let the children who are becoming adults take ownership of their lives. I think that's a very critical life skill which we can give them. It's also important that they should have some say in the choices that they're making, because you're willing to send them to colleges and to make choices then, that's only a couple of months away. What changes in those 2 months? Nothing. So they should be given that space to be able to make that choice. If they feel they're adequately prepared and they're willing to take that chance and say that I won't study for the next few weeks and I will still end up coming out with flying colors, let's trust them. we need to trust our young minds. They are going to be the adults of tomorrow. They are going to be making all the decisions for our country, for the world tomorrow. We should trust them from today. That's very important, I feel.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's wonderful talking with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Deepika? Ms. Priya? Yeah, Ms. Deepika, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. This is Deepika from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. Sir, my question is same, that students low attendance and they're mentally, what to say, they're not that much interested, and we cannot be so strict for them. So how can we make them strictly coming to the class and attending them and make them interest and make them, means their parents should be interested. Their parents are not taking that much care of that, however they take in general classes.
I don't think parents can necessarily force children as well, because they end up being a lot of conflicts which happen at home on account of these situations. Lots of fights happen between parents and children, which I'm sure you all also end up seeing either in your own homes or in the homes of your families and friends as well. So that's certainly not helpful. I do feel that what is far more helpful is going to be to try and talk to the child to understand what would they like to do, what are the subjects that they find engaging. Would they like to do, say, an additional project in that subject, something which is outside of the curriculum perhaps, but which can still be engaging for them? I know this requires adjustment of how we're running our academic system currently, but maybe this is the time that we all need to pivot towards certain changes which could actually benefit the students in the long run. Besides, of course, the other things that I had mentioned previously, this could be an additional point that you could keep in mind.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final three question, Ms. Kamna, and then we'll say bye-bye to you. Priya Sukhija, your question. Ms. Priya.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My question is, most of the answers I got from the in the whole session, and my question, because I'm a part of my school, I'm teaching, I'm working as a vice principal in Moderator Z School, Rudrapur, and I'm teacher as well as parent also. So what I observe with my children, my own children, they are using gadgets since morning till after completion of the online classes. They just stuck with the mobile phone or gadgets to copy down the work. That is the most pathetic condition. Number of times, though I am the most important or part of our administration also, but we ourselves are helpless. How we can sort out this problem? How we can reduce the use of gadgets?
Ma'am, like you said, that this is something which we can't let go of because there is no other way of communicating currently, and this is our only medium. I don't think students being on the gadgets is going to be such a big problem. These gadgets are here to stay. We, a lot of times, my profession does not involve this, but a lot of professionals involve people being on their computers and on their screens for 12, 14, 16 hours a day as well. And, it's something that people do. Right now, children's work is unfortunately on the gadgets. It's not an ideal situation at all. We would not want this to be. We would want them to be back in their schools, back in the playgrounds, back into the classrooms, having fun with each other, and all the banter and the noise coming back into our ears, even though it could irritate us a lot of times. We want all of that, but right now we don't have an option but to accept this. So instead of focusing on getting them off the gadgets, let's try and see, in the times that they absolutely need to be on them, I think what's important is also to help them find ways to balance out that gadget use. They have to do it for their classes. We do that with them. But at the other times, if there are other activities that they can engage with in their homes, I think that would be a helpful balancer. That's something that we should try and have conversations with them about, and that would certainly be helpful in the long run. I feel that's how we should probably be looking at this aspect.
I agree with your answer, ma'am, but these the 12-hour work and 10-hour work, that is for the adults. But the eyesight, if I personally say, my daughter's eyesight is just multiplied twice. So it's a very we can say alarming stage for all of us. But that's why I'm asking the question: we are helpless, though it is a boon for us because of this. Communication, this technology, we are communicating and we are just connected with our students. this is boon as well as curse
It is.
also.
Everything has its pros and cons. That's yin and yang of life. You can't help that at all. But like you said, that it's the necessity of the times. It's not an ideal situation. We try to move out of it as soon as we can, which is what was the attempt even a couple of months back when schools had tried to restart in different parts of the country as well. It was to try and change this entire aspect. What you can perhaps do, since you do work within the administration also, is to perhaps reduce the amount of work which is given to students online. But I'm not sure how much you will be able to be successful in that. Unfortunately, everything has to be done online currently. So we still have to accept it and move forward with it, finding our adjustments around it.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful words.
Final two questions, Rukmani Dubey and Miss Kavita K. Roy. These will be the final two questions, and everyone else, which is Khushbu, Preeti, Avik, we will take
Good
up
evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, my question is, ma'am, is it possible to eliminate stress in present condition when you are getting bad news from everywhere? If you want to reduce your stress, you want to make call to anyone, we get bad news from that side also, and it increases the stress of everyone. So in that condition, how can we reduce our stress?
I think right now we need to understand and accept that there will be stress coming at us from various vectors, and that is something which is not in our control. There is going to be bad news, difficult information, which we will have to process, and which is why I was reinforcing the fact that you have to find moments even of joy within your everyday routines to be able to ensure that you're able to balance out that stress that you're experiencing. Otherwise, you can feel very low and in terms of your energy, in terms of your motivation. So it's very critical that you try and ensure that you are taking care of your thought processes, taking care of yourself, doing things that you enjoy, following a certain routine, a schedule, focusing on your sleep, appetite, ensuring that you're getting in some exercise, some activity, talking to people around you, taking care of your support systems, not just by being there, but by also reaching out to them if you're feeling that there are certain difficult thoughts. If you keep doing these things on a regular basis, you're likely to be able to cope with the stress that we're experiencing in this situation in a much better way.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any question, Miss Kavita? And then we wind up the session. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Gaurav, and good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, recently one of our passionate colleagues, a sudden demise has actually shattered my team emotionally and physically. Yes, I hope that we all align that we spend most of our time with them, forging special bonds of trust and friendship that are unlike our other relationships. My question is, how do my team can deal with this emotional turmoil? Yes, I totally understand that grief is a natural process and it will be taking some time to be healed up. Can you just advise like how exactly, because anything, whatever is being imposed right now, because this is a recent thing which has happened. So I feel like my team is not at all motivated. Somewhere or the other, that particular emotional stress is going on because they were too much connected with our passionate staff whose sudden demise has created this emotional turmoil.
So like you said, that grief is going to take the time that it has to resolve. It's a process. People go through varying emotions. It's very important for us to embrace those emotional experiences. Sometimes there will be anger. Sometimes you will not want to believe what's happened. You may feel that, okay, if something else could have happened, why couldn't the outcome be different? Could I have done something differently? Till you reach a final stage where you're able to accept the reality. I think what will help in this situation of acceptance is a lot of conversation. It's important to be able to reaching out to each other individually and sharing what your experiences were. I think those conversations don't have to be just about the sense of loss that you're having. It probably also would be helpful to recount some of the good memories that you built with this individual, because that also allows us to be able to process the person's not being there anymore. Something which I heard very recently was, a person who talked about their sense of loss, where they talked about how they built a eulogy by talking to different people who were connected to this individual's life. And they listed down a lot of different experiences and narratives, and that helped them process that grief. And this could be an activity that you could all take on together as a group as well. So I think some of these kind of innovative ways of of connecting and talking to each other and reaching out to each other would be very beneficial. But it will take time. It's going to be difficult. It will also be difficult when you will come back into the physical space and you will re-experience that sense of loss and missing even when you do that. And we need to be mentally prepared for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Kamna. Thank you very much. Completely out of time. And I'm sorry to everyone who couldn't really take up their questions. As I mentioned, it's very difficult to take up all questions. However, we will see you the next week with one more expert. Maybe you can ask your question then. And if not, if you really want to ask a very urgent question, then I believe Kamna, if you can share your email ID with them and then they can reach out to you. That's the best we can do to begin with. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone.
You can, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, you can send us mails at mentalhealth@fortishealthcare.com, that just addressing them to me.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much. As I said, please everybody take care. We hope to see you next week. And people who have missed out today's session, or if they want to see this session all over again, tonight we'll be posting the recording of this session on the IPN YouTube channel, which obviously we'll share with your principals who can share it with you. You can go and re-watch this all over again. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Thank you, Kamna ji.
Thank you.